So what do you do to protect yourself from the things you can't see, like viruses and bacteria? What do you do to help protect those that can't protect themselves? What I'm talking to you today about is a concept called herd immunity. And that is essentially what we do to protect those around us who are susceptible to the things that they can't protect themselves from. Now, there's three main parts I want to talk about with herd immunity today. And that's going to be, what is herd immunity? What are the effects of herd immunity? And what are the problems that exist from the idea of herd immunity? Now, I want to clarify that I'm in no means an expert. I'm not a medical professional. I have just spent some time researching this to get a better understanding on what it is. So let's get off with this, and let's start out by saying, what is herd immunity? To understand herd immunity, though, first you need to understand what is immunity. So, according to the dictionary, immunity is the ability of an organism to resist a particular infection or a toxin by the action of specific antibodies or sensitized white blood cells. So that's what we do, what our body does to protect itself against diseases, viruses, bacteria, and infections. Now, there are four types of immunity according to medical news today. There is innate immunity, which is what we are born with. There is adaptive immunity, which is what we grow into, what happens to us as our bodies change, such as getting infections and other diseases and other viruses in our system that we then become immune to afterwards, after we're exposed to them, like mono, for instance. And there's passive immunity, which is what is immune things we get from other people. So that is like when we are infants and breastfeed, we get immunizations, immunities from certain things from the breast milk. And then there is immunizations, which are vaccines that are created by man. So now that we know what immunity is, let's talk about herd immunity. So herd immunity is the immunity or resistance to a particular infection that occurs in a group of people or animals when a very high percentage of individuals have been vaccinated or previously exposed to the infection, according to the dictionary.com. It's also known as community immunity, social immunity, population immunity, and herd effect. So, in other words, this is a quote from someone named Nate Silver, herd immunity is the biological equivalent of a firewall in which the disease has too few opportunities to spread and dies out. I like this analogy a lot because for those of us like myself that don't understand medical terms that much and understand computers a lot better, it puts it in a little bit better of an image. So now that we understand what herd immunity is, what are the effects of herd immunity? What does it do? So there's three main parts of that. There's protection, there's the evolutionary pressure, and there's eradication involved with herd immunity. So the first part is protection. So this is what it does for everyone. This is the main benefit of herd immunity. As Nelson Mandela puts it, life or death for a young child too often depends on whether or not he or she is born in a country where vaccines are available or not. So the important part of that is we vaccinate ourselves to protect ourselves from diseases and viruses and bacteria that will hurt us. Well, not everyone can do that. Some people they can't get immunized. As vaccine.gov puts it, it's especially important because some people can't get vaccinated for certain diseases, such as people with some serious allergies and those with weakened or failing immune systems, like people who have cancer, HIV/AIDS, type 1 diabetes, or other health conditions. We hear about these people a lot in news right now about COVID-19, and that's who we have to protect with our staying inside and wearing masks because they have weaker immune systems and can't take care of themselves with what the body would usually do. Works the same way with herd immunity. When you have more people vaccinated within the bubble, it protects those that are outside of that bubble or inside the bubble that can't be vaccinated. We create a barrier for ourselves, and I'll have a slide of that later on to show how that works out. So the second part of effective herd immunity is evolutionary pressure. There's two parts of this one that are most important. The antigenic shift is the first one. This is kind of the negative side of what can happen, and it's that the virus mutates to adapt, and it'll break out of herd immunity. So it'll change its construction, so you're no longer protected within the herd immunity system. So the virus, it'll mutate, like the flu does this a lot with several different strains, and it'll mutate itself. And then, even though you've had it before, you're no longer safe from this next version of it that comes out. The other type of evolutionary pressure is the serotype replacement. So the disease will become weaker. We see this with strep. This happens too. After you get strep once, it's hard to get not as strong of a version of it the next time. And within herd immunity, as more people get this, and it gets weaker and weaker because they can't pass itself and mutate, it's just no longer as strong of a change of the bacteria. And the third part is the most important, is eradication. So eventually, with herd immunity, if it's done properly, and the vaccinations and other immunities are working with themselves, the disease will die off and be eradicated. It'll be the final result of what we want. This happened in the United States with a few most popular ones, yellow fever, malaria, measles, rubella, diphtheria of all ones. The chart you're seeing is from the Eastern Mediterranean. It shows how by the 90s, pretty much all of measles was gone in 14 different countries because of herd immunity. It was able to protect everyone with that vaccination bubble. It's a good thing. So because we know of, what are the effects of herd immunity, let's talk about the problems of herd immunity. What's really going on that is why we're not safe from all these different bacteria and diseases that are going on right now, So the first main problem, kind of the only main problem we have, is free riders. So free riding is a concept of taking advantage of what everyone else is doing. So because in herd immunity you say you have 80% of the population vaccinated, known free riders, they're safe because the rest of us are vaccinated. Well, that's nice and all until too many people are unvaccinated, and it breaks down the system, and we no longer have a herd immunity. We have a broken system. It's only a few people, small buckets of immunity instead of a whole group of us, the whole population. The known free riders we have are anti-vax is one. And then we have religious personnel that don't get vaccinated for certain reasons. The Amish community is big on this one. And we have always the medical reasons for immune disorders that we talked about before. This is what apcic.org puts it. One of the drawbacks of herd immunity is that people who have the same beliefs about vaccination frequently live in the same neighborhood, go to the same school, or attend the same religious services. So there could be potentially large groups of unvaccinated people close together. Once the percentage of vaccinated individuals on a population drops below the herd immunity threshold, then exposure to a contagious disease could spread very quickly throughout the community. So because everyone's together, we don't have a bubble of safety, so everyone gets sick. You can see in the measles cases we had, it was almost nearly eradicated in the 60s, no more measles, and then recently, within the past 5 years, we've had a spike again in the United States, as more and more people aren't vaccinating. It breaks the bubble. And the other main part of this is that herd immunity doesn't work with all diseases. If there's no vaccine available or no innate immunity, nothing we're born with to protect ourselves, there's no way to establish a herd of immune people because we have no way to do that. Like with COVID-19 is the big one. And that's what we have for herd immunity. That's what it is. So it's, that's what herd immunity is. As you can see this chart, the top two being that it's not spreading, or it's spreading very rapidly, and the third one, when most people are immunized, it can't spread like it did before, and that's the effect of herd immunity. We get safety, we get, a little bit of comfort in there, knowing that we're not going to spread disease as much. But the problem is that the more people think that we're safe, is the less that we're going to be as they break the chain. And there we have my works cited. So I hope you'll be able to learn something from this one, and I especially learned a lot from it. And this is my presentation.